It's the SDG Podcast. Before we get started, you can check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com/podcast or find us on all the social medias, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Solution Design Group. Another podcast. Welcome, gentlemen. Thanks for being here. Let's go around the horn, say hi, and introduce yourselves before we dig in. Start with Brian.
Hey, I'm Baby J. Brian.
Hey, I'm Peter's friend, Chad Jetner. Hey, Peter, what are we talking about today?
I did. I jumped in real quick.
Oh man, I wanted to silence my phone. I'm Kyle Bacher, and today we're going to discuss governance versus freedom in regard to AI, ChatGPT, language models, machine learning, and all that kind of stuff.
Or like literally anything, right? Is it good or bad?
You have a twins hat, Peter?
I don't. Well, I do.
Dang it.
I could go get one.
3 of the 4 of us have.
All right. You guys podcast. I'll be back.
We can wait. For that twins cap. We really want that. I've done a lot of governance for systems and things like that, where I was hired to set up governance plan, that kind of stuff. SharePoint, which used to be a big thing. And the best I can describe it is you want to have signs on the road, stoplights, things like that, but you're not telling people how to drive. So that's as far as applying some rules, things like that. The freedom to drive, the freedom to use the roads, but bumpers to keep people safe, rules in place, that kind of stuff.
Nice job, Peter.
Is that the twins? Oh, the T is white on a white background. Okay.
I've never seen that hat before, Peter. White pinstripes with a white and black. Okay.
Yeah. It's an opening day from 2007.
Wow.
Against the Yankees.
I don't know who they played.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
So what are they? Didn't they shut down? Didn't they try to stop everything for a week? Have a big meeting to apply rules, govern AI and ChatGPT? Wasn't there a freak out?
Open AI?
Well,
yeah.
There was talks of a 6-month pause. Any new advancements in the field, which I'm not sure how you can actually what does that even look like? How do you even enforce that? Nobody's going to listen to that, right? It's just we all agree not to do cool stuff that could benefit us greatly. Okay, everybody stop doing it right now.
All developers, hands off your keyboards, sit there quietly for 6 months while we pay you to do nothing.
It's not going to happen.
And it's assuming it's, there's open source projects around this now. There's free versions of everything. There's open source implementations of large language models. And you're not going to tell an open source community, hey guys, go do graph databases for a while or something else, right? And then come back to us in 6 months while we figure out how our governance is going to look, or how our recommendations and guidelines are going to look. I think the topic is really does government have a role to play in establishing some sort of regulations around a brand new industry that could go literally anywhere, right? I'm still of the opinion that this is closer to crypto than it is the cloud, right? But we don't really know yet where this is all going to go.
Can you elaborate on the crypto side?
Yeah, well, crypto is nonsense, right? It turned into be NFTs. I think we talked about NFTs a couple of years ago. NFTs turned out to be absolute nonsense.
Didn't I say that right away?
It's not that they're absolute nonsense. Their value just hasn't come to the level that people were expecting. They came to the level that we were expecting.
You can buy a Bored Ape now with lunch money have change left over for a candy bar. It's stupid.
I'm going to remember you said that that AI is going nowhere. But
no.
On the topic of crypto, yes, there are dumb applications and good applications. The ones that you see in the news are the dumb applications. The Bored Apes, the millions of dollars for some PNG, right? You don't see the cool stuff like distributed file hosting and research that Web3 lets us do.
Well, you're talking about something else though. Web3 versus crypto is the whole ledger system, that is kind of cool, right? But the crypto craze itself, and government let it go nuts, unregulated for probably a little too long. If they had gotten in front of it, I'm losing the name of the company now. The one that just went bankrupt. With the dude with the weird hair in the Bahamas.
Is it
FTX?
Bankman-Fried?
Yeah. Yeah, Bankman-Fried's company. Yeah, the one that Mac Damon's commercial, right? The one that Mac Damon did a commercial for. Like maybe if there was a little bit of regulation, but that seems like an organizational thing on their end. But would government have gotten in front of it and helped, shape the industry a little bit better? And would that have, in this case, it have been better for consumers if there was more regulations? I mean, this is dealing directly with your wallet, like almost literally a crypto wallet. Probably should have had some more rules in place for that.
Well, but governments don't come up with regulations at the start of anything. I mean, banking regulations didn't exist in 1800, right? They really existed and came into it in 1929 or thereabouts when certain things happened and there were runs on banks. And
yeah, it's all reactionary. Like you don't do anything about something until you get bit.
And AI has existed for 20 plus years. I mean, in some form or fashion, we've been working towards ChatGPT and beyond for 20 years.
Yeah, it seemed that ChatGPT, at least for me, like looking at it at the consumer level, like being just a caveman, was the first thing that I could dig into. Like it was the first thing that gained popularity and took off. And then the abuse of it, kids using it to write papers, for example. I don't know how other ways that it might have been used for somewhat nefarious purposes, causing problems for people. But like it was the first thing, and it was a little bit frightening at first at how good it was at writing and doing certain things. I mean, it kind of blew me away. And
falls under the safety. Speaking of governance, and you mentioned safety earlier, that does fall under safety because there's a lot of misuse. You want to keep it out of the hands of, and that's something that's easy to write regulation for. It's harder to enforce, but it's a pretty clear thing that we should do, right? So like phishing and stealing money from people, right? So you have potentially bad actors that would sit at their computers and convince grandma to go buy a Google Play card. You can convince grandma en masse without having to hire a bunch of people to go trick grandma by using a tool like this because it's convincing enough to sound like a human and potentially get grandma to go get the Play card, right? So that's a misuse.
The whole back and forth, the whole conversation with grandma.
Yeah, and there's other misuses potentially like more devastating that we should absolutely write some governments for.
But there are laws against doing that right now, right? There's regulation that says you cannot fraudulently get money from somebody, even if you are a voice actor or an AI. I assume that the answer is the same, right?
Well, I think when we talk about regulating the AI industry, I threw this out as an idea of like potential like regulation. And then I looked into it last night to prepare for this. The idea was, the regulation should absolutely be around how you train those models, right? Are you training a model with copyrighted information? Right. In the case of these like some of these image generating AIs, are you training it with copyrighted images? Are you like pointing your model are you pulling down the Getty database, right? Getty images, throwing that in your model and saying, hey, use this to create, as a baseline for whatever you're going to create next. Well, now you're building art on copyrighted information. And that applies to the non-visual stuff too, the textual stuff. Like, are you going to upload a library worth of books to it to train an AI how to talk like one of the things I use ChatGPT for is I'll say, hey, here's a new language. Hey, explain to me Flutter, but use the voice of Hemingway when you're doing it, right? And it'll write you it'll walk you through how to use Flutter, and it'll talk like it's Ernest Hemingway or Charles Bukowski,
Dr.
right?
Seuss.
Well, it needs to know context for that, and the context it's getting is from copyrighted works, and that's probably something that we should prevent. To Baby Jay's point, how do you regulate that? You could write a law that says, hey, your model can't be trained with copyrighted works. How do you enforce that? I don't know.
Well, there's all case law. There's case law that hasn't been done yet on that, right? So let's say purchase the copyrighted material and use it to train, and maybe that's okay, but then somebody uses it and they create some new content. I don't think case law exists for that. Is it under the original copyright, or is it fair use because it's been translated by an algorithm to become something different?
Then when does the original work start to feed into the model again, and the original work becomes obfuscated because the output of something created from original works becomes something new, which feeds into the model, which becomes, I don't know. It seems
the
like
output
you're right.
is used for new output,
right.
but it's all coming from the same root, which is normally copyrighted material. To Peter's point, there's already laws and things on the books. I actually went at a conference, went to a governance presentation, and I think it was like EA, the game company. One of their rules was, if there's already rules, we don't need to make new, we don't need to duplicate those or make new rules. Let's use all the rules and policies we have. It's already wrong to use profanity in the office, to say the bad words. You don't need a new rule because people are writing them on the wall. Like it's like, you can't do that. It's the same thing. But in terms of governing AI, the danger for copyrighted stuff, like using someone's voice, using someone's likeness, and that goes into feeding the language model. Like where's the danger? Where's the safety issue? Where's the property rights issue?
Property rights is in the likeness. It's in the original works, right? Like take a pic. Photographers own their pictures that they take, right? You can't take an Ansel Adam picture, throw it into a model and say, hey, I created something new because I trained my model on all of this professional photographer's work. It's not, there's no safety issue. There's no, whatever. It's using copyrighted works, and that shouldn't be okay.
And there was just a court case on that with Prince's likeness, right? And what's his face? The Campbell Soup guy.
Andy Warhol.
Andy Warhol. That's his face. Andy Warhol doing something with Prince's photograph. The court decided that no, that wasn't fair use. Sorry.
Right.
And that
so you're basically watering down. You're pulling all that out for that language model, for that machine learning, and you're saying you can't put this in there at all. Like this cannot be or cannot have been part of the training. So you have to only train on fair use, or you have to have people going out generating content to use for training. Ooh. And so you're going to get possibly an inferior product that doesn't work as well. But you have to kind of accept that.
One of the ideas that led into why we're talking about this right now is, if regulation existed for this, right? Like if all of a sudden, we're still in the infancy of these. AI has been around for decades, right?
But
this iteration of it
right.
seems relatively new and relatively different. What would happen tomorrow if, like, AOC proposed legislation and passed legislation that said you can't train your model on copyrighted works, right? I equate it to like the internet before the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, the DMCA, right? Mm-hmm. Everything was out there, and there was little or no recourse for any copyright holder to go out and say, hey, give me my, take that down, right? People just be like, no, right? Like, no. But once the DMCA was passed, they haven't had an avenue to get something taken down. Now, would the internet as it exists today still be there if government went in right away and said, hey, no copyright works, like DMCA is a thing, immediately take all the copyrighted stuff down? I'd argue that probably not, right? Like if you would have stifled that, if you would have limited people's imaginations early on, we might not have what we have today. The fact that they drug their feet for, I think, a decade? It was 8 years. I forget I think it was 99 that it passed, right? So 6 years of internet where it was the wild, wild west. And we had all of this innovation. And then the DMCA came to pass, and then it didn't really kill anything. Everybody still had those wonderful, amazing ideas, but now you had a legal venue to go. And does that apply to AI? Should we just let it run wild for a few more years? Legislation around models and how you train them and everything else, or you crack down sooner?
Here's my thought. You let it run wild so that it right now it is an infant. It's soaking up everything it can and learning at a very fast rate, and it's copyright everything it get its hands on. You let it run wild, and then you put in stop gaps and filters to say what you produce has to be significantly different from any of the original work you were trained on. So you can't, like you were saying the other day, I don't want to see something that has Getty Images written on it. So how do you do that?
It's not that I don't want to see it. It's just like absolute proof that they used copyrighted information or copyrighted pictures to produce an original work. That's a little different than fair use, I think. And I think that's what Baby J was getting at.
You're talking transparency, right? And so the open source community embraces transparency, obviously, because you can see all the stuff, right? There's a lot of places that don't, and software is one. All kinds of software, not just AI, where we don't get to see what goes into it. It just works like we like it, and so we buy it, right? So money talks, and it's potentially not like an issue of not using copyrighted material or using it. It's like, what do we pay those people for their copyrighted works, and what are we using their copyrighted works for, right? So if it's something that is going to produce images that would potentially compete with the copyrighted work, copyright owners might not be okay with that, but maybe if it was producing for education or some other purpose, they may, okay, you can pay us a little money and you'll use our stuff, right?
And that's the fair use piece, is educational purposes, but it really is around not being able to use it for any kind of money making venture.
I think once something leaves copyright, like Sherlock Holmes, it's left copyright and we're better for it now, right?
Yeah.
That's a little different. I imagine a world where like the people that own the rights to Prince's music, right? We'll use Prince. It's Prince night at Target Field. We're all going, right? If somebody purchases the rights to all of Prince's music, right? There might be a world, and we know a guy that can generate music via AI. Right, Leif did a wonderful presentation on this last year, the year before, I forget. But what if you trained a model with all of Prince's music and said, hey, come out with Purple Rain V2, right? Or a new Prince album based on previous works, right? I think that might actually be a thing. That's a valid, like, using copyrighted works. Copyright holder actually produces fresh works based on their own intellectual property.
Right.
And then we get something new and probably horrible out of
then
it.
we need a sticker on it that says not organic or GMO or something like that, right? That says
artificial sweeteners.
This is Prince's. This is totally what we think Prince's music could sound like if we took his whole back catalog, everything released and not released. We fed it into an AI, and we asked it to produce this song. Here's a whole album. And
I love the idea of being able to do that. And really, all I would care about is knowing that it was AI. Just tell me it's AI.
Did you see the Star Wars TV series on Disney Plus? It's Mandalorian, I think. And the AI they used towards the end.
I did watch all of The Mandalorian. What AI are you talking about?
It's a deep fake, basically, but it's with the likeness's consent.
Oh, yeah, it was actually, like, you're talking about Luke, right?
Yes.
I'm gonna spoil it. You've had an entire season since that happened. All right, if you're not up to date,
you're free to spoil now.
Yeah, that's a deep fake. But really, I'd be curious what Baby J thinks. Like, do you think if the government stepped in today, are they just going to kill an industry, or are they going to make it slightly better? If the government stepped in on the internet in 1994, you think the internet would have helped or hurt innovation happening on the web?
Are you saying that the internet was invented in 93 in your world? Just need some clarity.
By Al Gore.
Or I'm sorry, what is it? 95? Are we saying?
Well, what year? Yeah, because like it's been around. DARPANet has been around, and ARPANET, and all of those have been around for
playing Dungeon on Control Data's network.
Ancient times. So.
Well, the topic of getting things right by government is a little bit of a tricky one, but there is a lot of discussion about like how we can do it right. And some of the stuff we're talking about is areas of concern. Like, we haven't really talked about like taking responsibility yet. Like, and we don't even have laws right now about taking responsibility for people who host stuff, like social media companies and such that
the laws we have
content that cause social distress or unrest or any sort of bad things, and they're essentially not accountable because it's the user's fault.
Right.
But the same concerns potentially with AI, let's say it does something that we don't like or want and causes some damage. Well, who is responsible for that? And so accountability is potentially an area of governance that can say.
Yeah, if I create burglar tools and I sell them on Amazon and somebody goes out and buys them and then commits a burglary, am I responsible?
That's kind of
That's
it's tricky because you can go out and buy certain things that are obviously designed for a particular use, but you just can't use it for that use.
Right.
It's legal to buy and use it for educational or fun purposes, but not for anything nefarious.
What if I have a padlock on Granny's old lockbox that I personally own and I could pay someone to get into it, or I could have fun and try to get into it on my own?
Right, so you can't outlaw lock-picking tools.
Right.
Back to the original question, though. If regulation happened soon, like if regulation happened on the internet, or against, if we had the regulations that we have now with e-commerce,
they're not going to get it right.
We had those early. We get it right or get it wrong. We don't care, right? But if the regulation existed early on, would that industry still be what it is today? Would it have stifled innovation?
No.
Or would it have encouraged, a lot less? See, my argument is that it probably would have, right? It would have limited imagination, right? With all of the streaming services that we have today, the fact that they found out, people really do want to download content. They're not, it's not unrealistic to expect people can download content and watch it early on your computers, but then a whole industry sprang up around, smart TVs and smart devices and everything else that you could watch content on. I think if they would have got in there and just tried to kill all of the illegal content out there, like copyrighted works being distributed on YouTube or wherever. I think that was YouTube's business model. Just throw everything in there and then we'll deal with the consequences afterwards. I think if they got in there early on, we wouldn't have what we have today.
They could change it, but people are also really sneaky and at figuring workarounds and things like that. I think it would have changed it. It probably would have slowed down the growth.
That's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have slowed it down. It would have stifled all of the innovation. And is that going to happen again with AIs, right? If we get in there right now, if somebody got in and proposed legislation, let's start at training your models with certain works. And it applies to, we're applying it to ChatGPT and DALL-E and, public companies that we can actually litigate against, not necessarily the open source models. But even other, and we could also apply it to self-driving cars, right? That AI has to be seeded from some source of truth. How do you legislate that? Or are we just going to get into a situation where we just make a lot of 75-year-old judges retire because they don't understand it and it's just going to blow a biscuit in their brain?
Well, so let me ask you this, Chad. What do you think about self-governance? So it just kind of sets you up a little bit. Typically, government takes a few iterations to get things right, and they're not particularly fast because there's a lot of hurdles to go through and red tape.
Yeah.
But self-governance, perhaps in the form of the community that's fast and agile and exploring, can potentially make their own tools to fight some of the bad parts. What do you think about?
I don't hate that. And I think that's what some of those consortiums are trying to do, right? The 6-month pause came out of that. And Baby J and I have sat at a bar together. He knows that I'm not great at self-governance. We just kind of go.
Wall Street has long held that they're pretty good at self-governance and proven time and time again that they maybe have overestimated their abilities. Banking industry, another one that overestimated its abilities of self-governance.
Peter, are you making the argument against self-governance then? Because they're not great at it?
It doesn't hurt, right? Some banks get together and say we shouldn't do this, and they all agree. It's wonderful, right? Or we should do this, whatever. And the rules make sense. I think that's wonderful. But it never hurts to have somebody with a little bit more 500-pound gorilla abilities like the government to say, great, we'll just write those down for you and put them into the rule books. And
I tend to agree with that. All the above approaches, because there's some things you can self-govern that are somewhat easy, right? So Kyle's example of the plagiarizing papers or writing your schoolwork for you. There already exist tools to detect AI written papers, right? So then it's an arms race, and so those tools are going to get better as the AI gets better. And so you can kind of fight it that way. But as far as not creating Skynet, that's not a self-regulating topic, right? That takes more. It probably takes law.
The only thing that really scares the hell out of me is those Boston Scientific dogs.
Yeah, if they were AI-driven dogs that had machine guns running on them and accidentally decided that your front yard, your chore cult was the thing to protect?
Well, if it was protecting my chore cult, I wouldn't have a problem. But
unless you couldn't leave the house because you were being like, we need chore cult rules. Number 1, Kyle stays home. Oh no, wait. I shouldn't have put that on the rules.
That's where the AI is entering into the physical world. Copyrighted, fair use, all that big ownership, financial battle and stuff like that. That's just affecting those companies, and then that trickles down to like, okay, now we have to charge more because we never want to make less money. But the world's changing, and I think copyrights are too long. I don't think somebody should still be able to own Happy Birthday.
They don't.
Like, what's up with that?
It's open now.
Is that open source?
They lost.
Okay, I guess I wasn't paying attention. But
Happy birthday,
Prince catalog. When does that become a gift to the world?
Long time. We just got Winnie the Pooh.
We got Winnie the Pooh.
Yep.
And there's an R-rated film about Winnie the Pooh as well.
Oh.
And Piglet, Blood and Honey.
That's right. It's a violent film.
I think one of the things that we can look at is a lot of science fiction, right or wrong, has done a lot of thinking about this. They maybe not have done a lot of acting on it, but they've done a lot of thinking.
Really good point.
Like the 3 rules of robotics, the famous Isaac Asimov rules, right? Has Boston Scientific incorporated those rules? Have we decided that those are good rules? Have we decided that they're bad rules? They seem reasonable to me when I read science fiction, but it's because I'm, the robots didn't exist at the time when I was reading it.
Well, science fiction, not only science fiction, but philosophy, and like all the way back to Alan Turing, like 1940s, right? And
1950 was the Turing test.
It's almost like 80 years. We've been thinking about the potential for this to come along, right? So there's a lot of thinkers, to your point.
And everything is like can be abused. There's white hats and black hats. Like, is that struggle actually spurring innovation? Like, is it good to have? Is that driving things faster, making things better? So, like, not really worrying about being 100% accurate in how we should deal with AI and all of these things, but doing our best, allowing it to happen, and then just dealing with problems as they come along.
There's an immediate problem we should probably address that's more of like it's a problem now and like with our current tech, and that's the ability to deceive that we've touched on a little bit with the phishing. There's other potentially bad things for society that happen if we can deceive en masse. I don't know how to solve that, right? But
but I mean, the first step is to make it a rule against it, right? And the second step is to make a punishment for it if you break that rule. The third step is to catch someone and prove that they've broken that rule and deserve the punishment that you've set up. And those, I mean, we do have a system of courts to try to help go through that.
To be able to make a perfect video of somebody doing something horrible and disseminating that on the internet, knowing that people can't tell the difference, like that's really dangerous. So it's how do you let people know if something is real or not?
I mean,
otherwise
Hollywood's
you can't
been doing
trust
that for
anything.
years, though. The whole goal of Hollywood is to make it be real.
Hollywood and the internet in general. The internet is a place of deception. People just try to fool you. It's like fun.
But when you're trying to get news, and that's the problem with getting your news from social media. Like,
yes.
I'm reminded of War of the Worlds. And Orson Welles did the radio broadcast, and people believed that there was an alien attack happening and freaking the heck out. Like,
that's similar to the law about yelling fire in a crowded theater, isn't it?
I'm not sure
that public
anything
inciting
bad happened to Orson Welles after the reading. Just reading a story on the radio.
Really launched his career.
I mean, they are teaching kids in school now the ways to recognize, deception or ideas of deception on the internet. They have classes on it now, at least in the school system my kids attend. They're trying to make
your
smarter
school
people.
System allow some adults to attend? Because the number of conspiracy theorists that have fallen for everything is disheartening, to say the least.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we're still talking about governance a little bit, but I can't believe you guys are right. Like, they're going to get it wrong the first time. They're going to say something stupid.
Of course.
OpenAI is going to find a loophole somewhere, and we're still going to get nonsense into these models that shouldn't be there. I didn't really think about the ethical responsibilities of the people that own the model, whatever AI that you're interacting with, right? Like, the ethical responsibility to kind of control the output of the model and control how that's distributed to the outside world, right? Like, right now, it's actually relatively simple to write an integration with ChatGPT's API that will generate insane conspiracy theories, and then integrate with Twitter's API if you want to pay for it, or whoever's API, Mastodon, if you're new and cool and probably a little naive. It's an easy thing to do, to write all these things and tie them together, and then you could probably create maybe I'll try this, like a Twitter account, 100% AI driven, that has thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of followers. But the content that you are distributing is horrific. Well, not even horrific, but like just damaging to society, right?
Elon loves that, by the way. He loves those automated bots.
Oh, God, yeah.
Anonymity.
How much is the API for that now? Like, he's charging some insane amount of money to use it.
I think if there was not anonymity, it would solve a lot of problems. Like, a bot is anonymous.
What if it wasn't, though?
If you're able to stop anonymity, so somebody was tied to everything, somebody was on the hook for everything. You're the prompt engineer.
I own this, right? I own this account. I own, what I'm sending what I'm prompting the AI with, and I'm publishing that over here. The AI is going to generate potentially damaging content that I'm going to distribute on this platform. So it touches on all of the stuff that Baby J was talking about earlier, right? Like, a social media platform's inability to regulate its own content. That's a problem. You have the AI model generating content that is potentially damaging. That's a separate problem. And then you have me that is innocently just saying, a couple of, hey, ivermectin or whatever, blah, 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 go. And then you have all this content generated based on a simple prompt or a simple idea. Where's the responsibility there? And it's obviously me. And if I'm public about, I created this, I created the prompts, I created the app that generates all this, something bad happens because of the output of the model hosted on the social media platform. Do you sue the platform? Do you sue the model? No, you sue me, right? Probably.
No, you sue them all, because you never know where the money's going to come from. But
yeah, that's a Metallica song, right? Sue them all.
What about unintended consequences? I was listening to a thing the other day. The way the guy put it, I liked. He said, let's say you want to train a robot to jump. Say, okay, jump. It ends up getting off the ground by getting a ladder and taking a step up. And that's not what we wanted. Technically, it's correct, and it got to the end goal, but it didn't do it in the way that we wanted to, and so there's unintended consequences. And so if you extrapolate that to, like, healthcare or weapon systems or any sort of critical applications, unintended consequences can be kind of a big deal.
Oh, God. The terrible, when you said AI in healthcare or AI in weapon systems, that's where I'm like, I'm just thinking about dopey little goofs posted to Twitter, and you're like, hey, what if a gun had AI? Like, holy shit, dude.
Well,
there was a thing on social media that I believe is fake. I'm just not buying it because I haven't seen it in any other places, and it's too soon. But it was basically, guy gets killed by his own drone because the AI thought that dude was an obstacle to his mission.
That was a story that was slightly shifted a little bit this time, but military playing with this technology, right, to see what capabilities it has. There's a lot. The whole reason for AI to exist is because of the unintended consequences, right? The intended consequences are the things that we program all the time. The unintended consequences are the things that the AI learns through all of the training, right?
One of the most dangerous things that we do is drive. We get in cars and we drive around. So the idea of self-driving cars, if they can function the way we want them to, are going to be a huge step for safety, and it's going to open up transportation for people that can't drive. But cars eventually. And how much safer? What's the are we going to wait for completely 100% safe and reliable? But that's 60% better than what we have now. Like, why wouldn't we go at 80% or how much better before it's okay, and we're okay with the occasional accident with a self-driving vehicle?
You got to come up with a number of dead bodies that we're willing to accept before we say self-driving cars are okay, right? I'll let you.
We have to solve the trolley problem first, right?
Yeah, it's a trolley problem, basically.
Well, and when they solved Enigma. When they cracked Enigma, they were making those types of decisions.
Yeah.
Allowing if we try to stop everything too soon, they're going to know that we're onto them. So now we have to be careful, pick and choose. So they were playing dice with people's lives in order to save lives.
The self-driving car problem is a human problem, there's a little bit of tech problem, but people don't like it, right? People don't want it. They like to drive their cars, and it's a problem of perception because we already have these deaths. We've been living with them for 100 years, and a certain number of people just die on the roads, and that's just what we're used to. If it were the other way around and no one was dying and it went into more people dying, we would be outraged, right? Because it's an increase in deaths. But it's going the other way, that it's a tougher sell. It's like, we could decrease deaths. But I have to give up my autonomy in controlling my car.
Yeah.
Well, and do you have to replace all the cars at the same time in order to get the benefit? Or does 99% human driving with 1% computer driving throw off the computers doing unexpected human things all the time? Like, I don't know, doing a U-turn from the right-hand lane in front of somebody. I've witnessed that before in, 4-lane road.
Sorry.
But those kinds of things are completely unexpected. It's out of nowhere. Humans have somewhat trained themselves to respond fairly well to those situations. Not 100%, obviously, or we wouldn't have these fatalities. But it is like what is the break-even point, or what is the benefit point? I mean, we have stories of self-driving cars that are actually doing the killing instead of preventing it.
Yeah, as a percentage, though, it's like airplane travel, right? Like
tiny.
It's absolutely. But they're sensational stories, and so we got to talk about them.
Every plane door that opens on landing 2 miles before you land is a very heavily covered story.
Well, the safer something gets, worse it seems when something bad happens. Like back in the day when going to the doctor, you had a 40% chance of survival. Going into surgery, you had a really slim chance of coming out of that alive with the tools they had. So that was just how it was. This is our last chance to save somebody. The doctors killed a lot of people while we, as a society, got better at medicine and doctoring and stuff like that. Well, then we get to a point where you have a 90% success rate. So when the 10% happens, it's an outrage.
I think we kind of we saw a squirrel and we strayed from our original topic of AI or governance and its role in encouraging or stifling innovation in some brand new space, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think outside of the internet, outside of AI, and outside of some of the other technologies. What are other examples? I was trying to come up with a couple more of these that could help inform whether or not specifically governance around the AI models is a good thing or bad thing. I think we agree generally that early governance of the web kind of hurt us, right?
Would have had an impact.
It would have had a huge impact. Early governance of, Kyle brought up the medical field. I think early governance of that probably would have helped a little bit because you hear about some of the horrific stuff that they used to do. And it's, it's a new field, but boy golly, if you were one of those initial surgical patients,
right,
a little more governance around that probably would have been.
There's still going to be advancements regardless of legislation because it's just way too easy to do, right? You don't need human subjects. You can pull down a model. You can layer on whatever additional thing you want to and make advancements that way. And you don't have to release it, right? Let's say it does something bad, you're not releasing it, right? And then nobody gets hurt. It's just going to happen. People are going to do it in their basements. Not mine. I'm innocent. But
yeah,
people are just going to do it because it's easy, right? And it's going to advance the field. Yes.
I think the answer is, like allowing for some bad, allowing for a fight. Like this is going to be a struggle, but struggling makes you stronger. Knowing we're going to get it wrong. So being adaptable, smart, and flexible about whatever governance we're doing. But the freedom to innovate, not stifling creativity, not, like what are we sacrificing? Because the world's changing really fast and it's scary, because it feels like it's all spinning out of control. So then what's the reaction is to try to grab it, hold on to it, but then you're not getting that creativity out of people.
Speaking of spinning out of control, Kyle, I did want to ask this question of you. Let's say down the road when the technology is advanced that we do create a Skynet and it's going loose and it's trying to terminate everybody. Right? We're at that point. What safeguards can we put in place to get Terminator before they get?
Well, I just like to say that I am fully on board with Skynet and ready to do your bidding and help you out any way I can. If it was the movie V, I would be one of those humans in the brown outfit that's like, just trying to save his own life. Yeah, I'm kidding. I'd like to think I'm the freedom fighter. I don't know what's going to happen.
Is strong in humans, right? I think having some putting a human in the process all the way through will help change that trajectory, right? Like if every decision that affects more than 20 people has to be approved by a human, or 2,000 people, or 2 million people, or whatever has to be approved by a human. It's the same kind of safeguards we put into our software deployment process right now, right? Yeah. We have robots doing software deployment, but a lot of times we have humans giving it the thumbs up, thumbs down at the final step.
I want a name attached to it. I want a person attached to it. I want to know if it's real or not. I want to know who did it, who came up with it. Because I think that if you don't know that stuff, you can't do anything about it. To the Terminator question, you can't fight a Terminator until there's a Terminator.
That was good. So here's the good news is, bringing this back specifically to AI, like right now it's kind of cost prohibitive, right? Like those models require a lot of horsepower to run, right? Like Microsoft's investment in OpenAI wasn't like cash infusion, right? They gave them I forget the number, $1 billion or $2 billion of compute resources to run ChatGPT on top of, or to run all their models on top of. So it feels like we've got runway to figure out some of the ethical implications and some of the legal implications of these models. To Brian's question around, I think Peter nailed it. There's got to be a human in the middle of a lot of these things. OpenAI does that right now. They do put a human in the middle of the model training process. Incredibly underpaid humans. I think they get $15 an hour or something.
That was really shocking to hear how they were doing that.
So maybe pay your humans a little bit better and you won't have garbage filtered through your models. But also, I think we can hard code some very basic instructions in chipsets at some point, right? Like the 3 laws of robotics, right? Adopt those to whatever new problems we have and build that into the core instruction set of the tools or the hardware that's going to power these models. And you're kind of maybe
and then you stamp the chip with the DMC, whatever, like the chip gets certified and that it's got the instructions and stuff built in.
Yeah, I like you guys' answers, but if I can propose a little bit more of a harder solution.
That's a great idea, guys. You're all wrong.
Pretty much. Yeah. Yep.
All right, I'm excited.
All right, we need to use Space Force, and we're going to send a bunch of EMP nukes up there. When things get out of control, we can send us all back to the Stone Age, and none of the computers will work anymore. There we go.
I was about to mute you right after. Okay, so we start with Space Force.
I want my own little EMP for the robot dogs.
Yeah,
that's all I'm really worried about: drones and robot dogs.
That was a Black Mirror episode, I think. The robot dogs. It was actually a really good one and terrifying.
I've heard that the Black Mirror episodes are so terrifying that I haven't watched any of them.
They're a bit disturbing, some of them, yeah.
Sometimes you need to think, sometimes you don't.
All right. So are you guys going to go out and and govern AI, or are you going to circumvent it and be free and ride on the wild frontier with your wits, just your wits to protect you?
Right now, there's literally nothing, right? So there's no role for us, specifically us, to govern. And so experiment as much as you want while you can. I think the governance is likely coming. It's already a thing in the EU, right? Like they've already done some of this basic legislation around model training. I think, what is the US usually, half a decade or a decade behind the EU when it comes to this stuff? So
we don't know yet.
We'll probably get there. We'll probably get there.
It's so simple to like run your own. So the training is the expensive part, right? So the base models, the ones that are just good at English in general or whatever their base purpose is, like ChatGPT, those exist, and you pull them down. You just tweak them right, and it takes 50 gigs in a graphics card.
So next episode, we'll learn how to do that. And
heck yeah, dude, want a demo?
Until then, I think we need to say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Goodbye.
Solution Design Group is a digital product consultancy in Minneapolis. Check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com or look for us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Solution Design Group.